Hi there, I'm Mrs. Myers and I'm with Art Skidoo, and I'm going to show you today how to create this cute tiger project. It looks a little complicated, but actually the shapes are really simple, so it's a lot of fun to create. Hi there, I'm going to quickly go over the supplies with you for this project. We are going to need pencil and eraser. We're also going to need paper. And so I like this nice Bristol board that comes in these pads like this. This is the 9x12 size, and that's the size we need. But you can use poster board or any sort of heavy stock. Then we are also going to use, I like making a grid on that piece of paper using oak tag or tagboard. And this is 6x9. And this is 4.5x12. And this helps you create that grid on this board. And I'll demonstrate that a little bit better later. Let's see. If you don't want to bother with that type of thing, you can just use a ruler to rule it out. And then if you're going to paint the project, you don't need anything else. That's everything you need for the drawing side. But of course, if you're just going to color it in, you'll just use some markers or crayons or colored pencils, whatever you have in the house. Then for the painting part, we've got brushes. So I like to use, for younger students, these two sizes. They are round brushes and they're size number 2 and number 8. So the number 8 is good for, the bigger one is good for backgrounds, and this is more for the detail work and maybe getting the edges of the backgrounds if you're trying to be a little bit precise. You're going to need a little palette, or you can use a paper plate if you don't have a little palette. And then you're going to need paper towels, which I know are in short supply these days, but hopefully you have a few in the house. And water and a water cup. And then of course you're going to actually need the paint itself. So the tempera paints, you're going to need white, yellow, green, orange, and brown. If you don't have orange on hand, you can substitute in red. You just need less of that. Also, you're probably going to want a piece of newspaper or craft paper or something for a placemat just to protect your table while you're doing this project. So let's get started. I'm also going to just put up this list so you can see it for a few moments. So through the magic of video, we have 2 tigers here. This one is the one that we're copying throughout the project, and this is the one that we've just created. I wanted to show some differences here. You can see that this tiger is a little bit more orange than this one. This is kind of more of a tawny lion color. So when I created the paint on this one, I mixed white, yellow, and orange, whereas this one is just the yellow and orange. So if you don't want it to be so tawny, just skip adding the white to that particular part of the project. Also, notice that the brown is a little bit lighter here than on the sample that we created. So if you would like a lighter brown, just mix a little white into the brown. Other differences are, I did end up outlining this project just so you could see what it looks like, with and without the outline. So you can do whatever you like best. That's the wonderful thing about art, is you can do everything differently. Okay, let's get started with the drawing of this. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to use these little templates here to create some lines. So this is a 4.5 by 12 inch sheet of cardboard or oak tag. We're going to use that to make a line. I'm making it dark so you can see it, but you really do want to just make a light line just as a reference and not as a guide. This is a 6x9, but we're actually going to shift it over a little bit and make our center line a little off center, just so that the tiger's tail is balanced. On my example, he's centered, but the composition's a little bit off, so I'm going to correct it for this example right here. So I'm just going to get rid of that. If you're using a ruler, then you're just going to be making horizontal line across 4.5 inches up, right in the middle, and maybe about 7 inches over. So 5 inches here, 7 inches here. That out of the way. Then we're going to use our CD. So this is going to be our guide. So see how we're going to go ahead, see how this fits right here. So this makes sure we get a large enough head in the composition. And so we're going to place this so it's pretty close to the top, and see how the line is right going down the center of that opening in the circle. And then you can just trace that. So do that lightly. In fact, all your guidelines should be light. I'm going to do it a little darker so you can see it, but I want you to do it lightly. Okay, so now we have a circle here, and now we can, that'll help us create that oval shape. So we can just go in and kind of create maybe a little moon on each side. To create that oval shape. And I'll do this one a little quicker. So then you have that oval shape for your tiger's head. And we're going to go ahead and erase that circle guide that we created. That's why I said to do it lightly, so the erasing's a little bit easier. You don't have to get too wrapped up in this because we're going to be painting over it. And tempera paint's pretty solid. It's going to hide the lines for the most part, especially if they're light. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's go ahead and create that nose shape that's right here in our tiger. So notice how it's essentially a triangle. Actually, okay, so we're going to go ahead and create the nose on the tiger's face. And so that's essentially a triangle. And so we're going to maybe start that pretty much right at the midpoint, maybe a little higher. So you can actually make little reference marks here. So that's going to be the bottom of our triangle. Look at the distance of how far that is from the bottom to the top. And we'll make a little reference line for the top. Now we can do a line across. So that's probably about 1 inch on each side. And then you're going to connect it up. So you're creating that triangle shape. So again, this is a simple project just because the shapes are simple. Now we're going to look at our center line and just make a little reference mark on each side of this line. So a little over this way, maybe 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to connect it up with a straight line. Good. All right. So hopefully everyone's following along, and we're going to go ahead and create his muzzle now. So that's going to start at the top of his nose, and it's going to curve down and connect up near the bottom of the oval. Again, we can make some little reference marks here. And this guy is symmetrical, so you're going to have them on the same side. So maybe just think about a little jump from the line to here, and a little jump from the line to here. And then you're going to connect those curves. So it's just a little curve down to connect to that line on that way. Curve down. And then you have that shape for you. So now that we have that, you can actually just go ahead and erase out this. And this one, this is actually where some light paint is going to be, so let's try to erase that really well. Okay. All right. And then he's got a little smile, so we'll just go ahead and give him a little smile like this. All right, and then he's also got little smiling eyes. So they're just basically little rainbows, and they're on each side of the nose. So maybe you want them again to be maybe just a little up from the nose. So maybe you pop up, across, and a little eye like that. If you would rather give him open eyes, that's okay. You can just give him a nice round eye. So if you rather do that, you can. But I'm gonna, and then you can paint that black and maybe put a little highlight in it. But I'm gonna go ahead and keep our little closed eyes because he's just, it's like he's purring. Okay. All right, so what does he need now? What do you think? How about we get his ears on him? So again, he's symmetrical, so his ears are little round shapes here, you know, like a bear ear. So they're not actually circles, they actually come in a little bit. So it's not, they actually, so it curves out, curves in. So it's like, it's more than half of a circle, and we're gonna do that on both sides. And it's gonna be basically over where his eyes are, a little more to the side. And then he has a little curve on a similar shape on the inside for the inside of his ear. I think I'm gonna make this one just a little bigger. I think I got that too small. There we go. Just gonna get that erased out. Okay. So he's looking good, huh? All right, so let's go ahead and get his body in. So again, look at the relationship between his muzzle, that's his muzzle right here, and his body. So it's just gonna be a little step in. So a little step in, and then it's gonna curve down to the bottom of the page. Same thing here, so same distance. We're gonna put our pencil here, step in, it's gonna curve down to the bottom of the page. And then he's got this little round belly. So again, it's just a curve up, centered on our center line, and you're good. Now it's just a matter of adding some stripes, and he'll be ready to go, other than his tail, of course. So let's give him a couple stripes on each side of his head, and they're just like drawing little triangles right off of his forehead. So let's do a couple triangles on each side like that. And he's going to have a couple triangles on the side of his face. And he has whiskers too, but we're not going to worry about those right now. That's something we're going to do after the whole thing is painted and dried. So we're also going to go ahead and get some triangles on the side of his body. And they're going to be about the same size as what's on his head. And you can either put 2 or 3 on each side of his body. Okay. All right, and now we're going to get his tail. And so this is the one where it's just kind of a random wavy shape. You don't have to make it exactly like that, but it's going to come out of his body. And the most important thing is look at how the distance from here to here, and the distance from here to here, and the distance from here to here is all about the same. His tail is the same width going up. So that's the one thing. So the first line is easy. We're just going to kind of make a curvy line coming up. And then we're going to do a second curvy line. This is where we're going to pay attention, make the distance the same. And then we're going to put a round top, because tigers have round tips of their tails. And then it's just a matter of adding some stripes. And you see how his stripes are a little bit thinner than the spaces in between. Got some stripes there. So that's it. He's all drawn and ready to go. And then you can go ahead and either color him with markers, or you can paint him. And before you start painting, we want to definitely erase all the things that aren't quite right in it, like the guidelines. So I want to get the guidelines out. And I also want to, if there's any like little goofs I've made and I want to fix them. I want to get those out as well. So we'll get started with the painting in just a little bit. Okay, let's get started with this painting. We're going to start with the background. That's usually what you want to do when you're doing a painting, is paint the background first. To make things a little easier, we're going to use watercolor for the background. It can just go on real quick and we can create a simple watercolor background. And if we get a little bit like on our tiger, it's okay. So we're just going to quickly fill all that in place. And if it's a little blotchy, that's okay, because the jungle is not a solid green color. It's kind of got a dappled green look. We're going to go over this with tempera paint too to kind of create that jungle look, but actually having texture in this background is good. Just try to make sure you get all the way up to your tiger. Again, I'd rather have it go a little bit into the line than not right there. And I'm not going to bore you all with painting the whole thing, so I will be back in a minute. Okay, so I've gotten the background in with these liquid tempera paint or liquid watercolor paints. Best way to clean a brush is once it's all, you're about to change colors, and you don't need to clean it between if you're using the same color, is just wipe off the excess paint on the paper towel, and you're going to rinse it out. Wipe it again. You might want to go through that another time, especially if you're going to be using like a lighter color. Yeah, as I can see. Yeah, I can still see some more green in there, so I'm going to keep doing that a little bit more. Okay, so now I have a pretty clean brush. Okay, so let me show you how we're going to go ahead and mix this paint. So we're going to make this nice tiger orange. So to do that, we're going to use a little white. We'll just mix that in the middle there, and it's going to have a little green in there, but that's okay. And a little yellow. And we're going to put just a little bit of orange. Orange is a lot stronger than yellow, and of course if you end up using the red, red is super strong. So you want to make sure you're kind of going light on the orange. We just want to make it not just a yellow. We want to have a nice yellow-orange color for the tiger. And you want to mix up a fair amount of it, just so we know we have plenty to create the entire creature, because it's sometimes a little hard to get an exact match. So I think that's looking pretty good. That looks like a nice tiger orange. So, you know, like great kids like 3rd grade, 4th grade, they can probably mix this up. If you want to help younger ones get this done, you can do that. Anyway, so then we're going to go in and we're going to paint our entire tiger. And what's nice is the tempera paints are pretty solid, but they're not completely solid. So we can paint right over these lines, and when it dries, you're going to be able to see them just slightly, so they'll be a nice reference, because we're going to Sharpie those at the end. Again, so you might want to use a detail brush around the edges. I'm just going to kind of fill in. So I got the main thing. Now, just set that down. You can set that on your palette, and then you can use the little brush to kind of go in here and get the details. So see how I'm just using it for around the edges. And tempera paint, you want to have a nice solid coverage. Don't be stingy with this paint. And again, it's really nice. See how I've kind of made a little boo-boo in there? It's okay, I can paint right over that. It's not even going to matter. Tempera paint's very forgiving. Okay, so I'm going to fill in all the areas like this. So this area and down here as well with the orange paint. Okay, so we've finished up our orange on the tiger. So the next thing we're going to do is the lighter color. That's his muzzle and his belly and actually the tip of his tail as well. So even though you've still got some of this orange paint on your brush, you don't even need to clean it because basically all this color is the same color, but we're going to take some white and make it creamy by mixing it into the leftover orange that we have. So then we have a nice creamy white. It's a beautiful color. And then we're going to use that to fill in the areas like his belly. Again, it's best if you can just do a little overlap on there. That way there's no white spaces. Okay, so you got his belly. And you're going to go ahead and do that a little bit on the tip of his tail, just because tigers actually have a white tip on their tail. I don't know if all of you knew that. And then, of course, on his muzzle. And just kind of work around the nose. Again, better to overlap it a little than not get there at all. And around his face like so. So I'm going to get this finished up, and you guys can work on this too. All right, we've gotten the cream color in everywhere. So our next step is to get the browns in on our tiger. And for that, we're definitely going to use our little detail brush because those areas are a little bit smaller. And you can see the lines. So this is one of the first instances of being able to see the lines. And you're just going to kind of carefully fill in the inside of his ears. And if what you drew isn't quite right, you can always kind of change it up a little bit when you're painting. Go ahead and get that one in. Okay. And then like the top of his nose. Like the bottom part, we're going to Sharpie in when this whole part is dry, but the rest of him, he's got like a brown nose. I'll kind of carefully fill that in as carefully as we can. You can do real detail work by just using the tip of your brush. See, and I'm resting my hand on the table to make it steady, if you can do that. And then the tip of the brush, that's how you get that nice detail in there. So the last step here with the painting is we're going to get some of this jungle texture in here with our Tempera paint green. So for the most part, I'm going to use the little brush, the number 2, and I'm going to use it maybe to create some vines that are dangling down. So I can just maybe make a little line, kind of squiggly line. And then look how I'm just dabbing the brush. It's like dab, kind of put it down, and I can dip it in the paint palette each time. Just make new leaves. And it can just be kind of fun and random. It doesn't really have to look like a real plant. It's just supposed to have a fun jungle texture. So we can maybe do that again up here. Maybe have it go into the tiger. But this is just supposed to be a fun exercise where you're just creating some foliage, a plant word. You could make a big kind of palm leaf here. So maybe like big sticks of grass. vine coming out sideways. Again, see how I'm just putting the tip down, push down, dab, push down, dab. You can just maybe do a couple spots here and there. You're making it the jungle. And you're just going to fill in there. I'll demonstrate like a big leaf over here in the corner, and then I'll just leave the rest up to you. So you just make a leaf. So it's like one line, and then you make some lines branching out. See how they're kind of angled up? They're not going out straight. And then you can kind of create that leaf shape around it. And then maybe we'll just kind of go back in with the tempera paint, or I keep calling it that, the watercolor paint, and make that a little darker on the inside. So one thing about art is there's no real rules. You can just kind of experiment and play, and that's, you know, that's the whole idea, is to have fun and play with it. So you've got a leaf there, just maybe a couple more vines. You're good. So just kind of have fun and explore. Okay, so I've gotten the background in and I wanted you to see it. At this point, the project has to sit and dry because it needs to be fully dry before we get involved with the Sharpieing or using the Sharpie. So just wanted to point out, look at how the jungle doesn't necessarily stop, you know, before the edge of the page. See how, like for instance right here, that's going off the page. Okay, so once your paint's dry, and oftentimes that's going to be the next day, it really does take several hours to get this paint to dry, we can go over it with your Sharpie marker or any other black marker that you happen to have. The best way to go about getting all these details in is to make that outline first. And then kind of carefully fill in. Like I said, I'm using right now a ultrafine marker, or not an ultrafine, a fine marker. And for this project, you could actually, if you've got a bigger one, like this guy on hand, this, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but any fat black marker will do. You can get it done a little bit faster, but you have to be careful around the edges. So you can get that all filled in. And then you should, again, you should be able to see the lines, your pencil lines of where you drew before, and you can get those in. So you're gonna go ahead and look for those and give him a little smile. You might want to kind of go back, make it a little bit thicker here. Yeah, if you're an older student, like 5th grade or something, you could actually do this with black tempera paint, but to try and make sure it works out, you know, nice and clean, it's easier to do it with Sharpie. And then go ahead and get like these ones. Again, you can kind of go back and make it a little bit thicker, kind of double line it. The tempera paint kind of sometimes gets a little bit stuck on the Sharpie, so again, you can do that here with this. You're just going to slowly outline all the stripes that you've drawn on your tiger and fill them in. If you want to actually outline him too, you can. I'm not going to for this project, but you could actually add little details here on the ears, like that if you want. Again, it's optional, it's personal taste. And if you'd like to add whiskers, you can give him 3 short whiskers on each side. So I'll show you that. So see how it's going to start kind of right here at the edge of the muzzle, and they're only going to extend out a little bit into the green. So 3 little whiskers. that on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to finish him off screen, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this project. Okay, you can see we're all set here. That's our original example, and then we have what we worked on today. You can see I've outlined this one here just for differences, and that's a choice you can make as an artist. It's fun to do a project that is step by step, but everyone has the ability to make it their own and give it their own personality. That's what I like to encourage, and I hope everyone had fun.